right. So first of all, wanted to say thank you to everybody for making a little bit of time for us today. My name is John Finlay. I'm the CEO of Lemonade LXP, and we are a digital growth platform for financial institutions. And today what we're going to talk about is turning frontline staff into digital banking experts. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions, there's a Q&A button there, and if you could put your questions in there, I'll do my best to address them at the end of the presentation. So if you just drop them in there, that'd be great. The other thing is we are recording this, so we are happy to send out a recording when it's over. Not that any of you would want to listen to me again, but maybe you want to share it with some colleagues, or there might be a stat in there or something that you want to grab. So that kind of concludes the housekeeping. I think we can get started. So turning staff into digital experts. So the first thing, I'm just going to sort of cover what we're going to talk about today. The first thing I wanted to point out is I'm not a big fan of super long webinars. I try to be mindful of everybody's time. So I am going to try to pack everything into about 20 minutes or so that it'll give you back a little bit of time in your day. I don't like to stretch things out. So we'll try to give you a bunch of information pretty quickly. So on the agenda, first thing is why digital frontline expertise matters. So I want to talk a little bit about why that's important for a financial institution, and then talk about the obstacles to activating your frontline so that they develop the digital expertise they need to promote and support your digital capabilities, because it's not as easy as you might think. And then lastly, I'm going to share a proven strategy for creating digital experts that we've kind of developed over our years in the industry. Just give you sort of some of the things that are working for us, some insights for you. So let's get started. Let's first talk about why it matters. And I think the first thing I wanted to do, if it's all right, I just wanted to ask a quick question of everybody. I wonder, how important digital customer experience is to everybody. And I see a lot of people have already answered top priority, 47%, very important, 50%. So you can see that it's a pretty big priority, and that's what we're hearing for our customers and prospects, that it's kind of a big deal this year. So I'll end that poll, show you the results so you can see it. I hope I'm doing all that right. The person who normally runs our webinars is sick today, so I'm on my own. So I hope I'm doing all the polls right for you. Okay, great. Thank you for the feedback. It's really helpful. So why it matters. So the first thing that struck me as I was digging into this is this is from Cornerstone Advisors that they did with such a report they did with Strategy Core, and you can see that new account openings are largely going to mega banks. So regionals, communities, and credit unions aren't winning those either new customers, or they're seeing customers switch to the mega banks. So there's sort of a migration of new accounts going to mega banks. So that's kind of an important thing. And then if we look at market share, I snagged this from PwC. You can see that market share for the larger financial institutions is pretty steady, around 42%, but you see a dip in regional bank and community banks. And the same thing's happening in credit union space. So when we start to dig into sort of what's driving that, when we brought Lemonade to market, we brought it in as sort of digital adoption, helping people drive adoption. And that was the thing. All the financial institutions were all looking to drive adoption, but COVID did that for us. It forced everybody to go home. It forced them to start using digital channels. And what resulted was a whole bunch of people calling contact centers, trying to figure out how to use the tech and have other financial matters addressed. So you saw a heavy support burden put onto the financial institution because COVID forced everybody to leave the branches and go home. And you can see that 60% reduction in branch usage here. And then as you look at how people are interacting with their financial institution, you see that overwhelmingly it's digital banking tools. So that migration, the adoption that everybody had spent years trying to get, kind of happened, kind of COVID did it for us. So you've got accounts migrating to larger financial institutions amid a time when people are moving to digital. I don't think that's a coincidence. And then if we look at, and I apologize, this one's a bit small, but it's from a Deloitte report, and it shows how what types of things people are doing and how they interact with their financial institutions. So you can see for information, overwhelmingly, it's still people. But when we get to transactional stuff, they want to use digital channels. So that kind of makes sense. You imagine you're a customer and you want to do funds transfer. Well, if you're only going to contact someone if you have trouble. Otherwise, you're just going to use the digital technology so that you don't have to be burdened by going to a branch or whatever. And you're only going to contact someone when you have trouble. Or if you're a new customer trying to learn to use the new technology, that's when you're probably going to want some guidance from a human being because you don't want to make a mistake and all that kind of stuff. So it makes sense. For information, people still want to talk to humans, but for transactional stuff, they actually just want to use the digital channels. So those are some of the reasons that it matters, is that in order to nail our digital customer experience, our frontline staff really has to be experts to handle those things. And at the same time, we also want to help our frontline staff, and driving that expertise is part of it. I'm sure you've all heard in the news about the Great Resignation here from the financial brand, banks barely keeping up with staff shortages in the COVID world. And then from Wall Street Journal, 40% of eligible workers opting out of the workforce. So when I put this in a bank or credit union perspective, I remember when we were a few months into the pandemic, I was talking to a fairly senior guy at a large regional bank, and they had shifted 1,000 staff members from branch roles to contact center roles working at home. And I thought about that experience. So you're not experienced being a contact center rep. You're pulled out of your office, you're now working from home, and you're meant to support customers who are largely flocking to your digital channels, and many for the first time. What a stressful situation to have these customers calling you looking for help, and you've never actually supported it. I'm sure we've all had the experience of being tech support for your parents. They call up, they're frustrated because they can't get something done. So they're already a little bit frustrated and angry. Then you're trying to field their request, but you can't see their screen, so you can't really help them. So it's kind of frustrating for you. And ultimately, that customer experience, albeit their parents, but that customer experience is not a great one. And what did that do for the customer? Of course, it wasn't great, but for the employee, it's stressful. And so when you're talking about the Great Resignation, if your employees don't have the training and tools they need to support the digital capabilities that your customers are moving to, I think you're going to start to see attrition. So those are some of the reasons that I think it really matters. So to recap that section, it's community banks and credit unions are at risk. COVID's changed the way people bank, and they're banking digitally. And the key is humans are vital. Humans are vital for your digital customer experience, but they're quitting in droves. So that's kind of the case for why it matters. Now let's talk about activating your frontline. And, we all want to do it, but it's not so easy. And it's because there's a few obstacles. So we'll dig into those a little bit. So first of all, work life has changed. So this stat, 75% of FIs are letting half their staff work from home. Okay, so that changes dynamic a lot. You, as a branch staff member, you've got shoulder to shoulder colleague support when you need it. Now you're at home, you're isolated, and you're meant to support customers. So that's a big change. Is a big obstacle that we have to overcome, is that our staff are working remotely and they don't have the same human resources and technological resources that they enjoyed at the office. And this little thing that I snagged from the financial brand. So it says, many work at home initiatives that succeeded, but a survey showed that 74% of employees experience challenges working remotely. Communication tools are the top solution to make their jobs better. And 33% said they don't have the right IT tools. So highlighting that problem, that the shift to remote, while we all may manage to do it fairly well, those staff members are still lacking some of the support they need. And in a survey from Ipsos, 81% said they needed improved training and better tools. And 90% said they wanted access in the flow of work, which makes a ton of sense. You're there, you are working, you need to help a customer. It would be really nice to be able to have some information that you can grab right then and there that solves that problem. But we weren't necessarily tooled for that pre-pandemic. So the next one, the big obstacle. So when we brought the reason that we built our platform is we're working with we got called by a sort of, I guess, a super regional. And they said, what our challenge is, not enough of our customers are using our digital capabilities, online and mobile banking. What can you guys do to help? And we said, well, the people that aren't using your tech, where are they? They're coming in your branches, calling your contact center. So why don't you just get your frontline to promote the technology? And they said, makes a lot of sense. The problem is our staff don't have to bank with us. And so you can imagine, if you don't have to bank with your employer, you probably don't use the tech all that frequently. And if you don't use it frequently, then you're not going to have in-depth knowledge about it, which makes it tricky to support it. And you're never going to promote it lest anybody ask you a question that's embarrassing because you don't know the answer. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And actually, that was my second poll that I wanted to ask, because I'm curious as to, for you guys, how many of you folks have your staff has to bank with you. So I'm just going to go to my next poll here and ask this. I'm curious, how many of you are in a situation where your staff don't have to bank with you? So 80, look, okay. I'll just wait for people to finish here. Okay. So we can see in the results that 77% of you folks don't have to bank with you. So I think you're all sharing that same problem that our first sort of super regional bank had, which is your staff don't bank with you. Okay, great. So I will just move on from that. You can see the results there. So that's one of the big challenges. The next one is you come up against this attitude that training sucks. And it's been, that attitude has been developed over many years of having to endure compliance training. Because the vast majority of training that financial institutions have historically done have been compliance training for system of record stuff. And so they can satisfy the regulators. And that experience, universally, we're told by a bank frontline staff or any staff, that it's not the most fun experience. It's read and tick a box and say you read it and so forth. So that you've got that sort of reputational thing to overcome, that training isn't all that fun. And that's actually not the fault of your HR departments and your learning folks. They're saddled with traditional training systems that just aren't tooled for digital. You know, you imagine these systems are basically an LMS, a learning management system, basically houses all your training content. And then you've got disparate authoring tools that you use to create the content. And then you have to upload them into the learning management system. But what's made worse is those authoring tools are often kind of antiquated, and they're certainly not built to build proper digital training for digital product knowledge. And they also take a long time to create. And then you've got the whole thing of converting it and uploading it. So the experience that you're able to generate with your learning management system, which is your typical system of record, it's just not tooled to provide good digital training. So it's not the fault of your training folks. It's the fault of old systems that weren't built for a modern world. So the next one is lack of support within the flow of work. So this one is a huge thing. So I mentioned the folks being sent home to work from home and meant to support customers who have various needs. And I think that creates a very stressful situation for folks who, A, they haven't had the training that they need, but B, don't have something to reference that allows them to solve that customer problem quickly. And that creates a stressful situation because most people want to help other people. And so if you don't have those tools, and most financial institutions don't, it makes it very difficult to offer good advice and a great customer digital experience. And so I think those are the real challenges that you face in trying to create digital experts in your front line. So now let's talk about the strategy. Over the years that we have built and honed our platform, we've kind of developed a recipe for creating frontline digital experts. And I'm just going to share with you how we do it. I'm not going to go into much detail about our product because this isn't meant to be an ad. It's meant to share insights on what's working. So the first thing you need to do when you're training folks about new digital products is you got to teach them foundational knowledge. And what I mean by that is like rules and regulations, daily limits, age limits, border limits, all these kinds of things. And typically that's been shared out via a brochure, and people read it and tick a box and say they read it. But imagine that employee experience. So we'd call that fire drill training. When you're first going to roll it out, here's all the information, learn it, regurgitate it. Okay, you're good to go. That doesn't really acquit itself all that well in the real world. And I can attest to that from my trying to remember things after I took exams in school. They would leave me 5 minutes after the exam. So instead, what we've been doing is morphing that type of content into game-based learning. And when I say game-based learning, I don't mean gamification. So gamification is like tack leaderboards and badges onto your existing content so that people will interact with it. And while that might have a very short-term effect on engagement, it doesn't work. What I'm talking about is taking your training content and morphing it itself into a game so that people learn through play. And it's a very different thing. And if you do it right, and you have the right type of intrinsic incentives in there, you can make it so that people will play repeatedly. And when you do that, what you see is better learning outcomes because they repeat the game a few times to maximize their score and their performance. And by doing so, they're exposed to the content multiple times. And that helps them with that foundational knowledge, those sort of nitty-gritty questions that customers are going to ask when they're about to use a new piece of technology. So game-based learning for foundational knowledge. Then you got the fluency issue. Let's go back to the people. What did we say? 77% of your staff don't have to bank with you. So if they don't have to bank with you, they're not using your tech that often. So driving digital fluency is mandatory for these people to be confident enough to both promote and support your technology. So technology walkthroughs have been a great solution. And I differentiate those from videos about your tech because that's what a lot of FIs are doing. So the videos are great, but the thing is, there's a few limitations. First of all, they're not interactive. So I just sit and watch. It's a passive experience, and it shows me, here's how the tech works. And often the videos focus more on the value propositions and how the technology is going to improve the customer's life than on using it. And then the last part of the challenge with videos is your tech changes all the time. And when it changes, you got to change the videos. It's a big job. So rather than videos, and then the other option that you see is some folks using sort of like old school VCR type guides where, it's a text thing. It's got a picture and some writing. I would say about that, I don't know how many of you are of my vintage, but back when VCRs first came out, they had a big long manual. And even though the reward for reading it was I could watch a movie, I still never read it. I just poked around on the thing and figured it out. People don't like to read that stuff. So our solution, and what I think is the best solution, is technology walkthroughs so that your staff can actually touch and feel the tech and can make mistakes without worrying about sending money to the wrong person or making some terrible mistake. So again, it's the game-based learning for foundational knowledge, and then technology walkthroughs to drive comfort and fluency in the technology that allows them to promote and support it. And the next piece is role play scenarios. So we want to develop soft skills with those frontline staff so that they have the confidence to promote the technology and they know how to guide the conversations towards opportunities to show customers how easy it would have been to do their transactions using your digital capabilities. So it's kind of like you're building a foundation. So the game-based learning for the foundational knowledge, and you understand all the nitty-gritty. And then, okay, I understand the tech because I've gone through it and I've walked through these transactions a bunch of times. So now I have all the information I need. So now I've got the confidence. Now you give me these role play scenarios where I get to spot opportunities to recommend the tech, and then I get to practice supporting it. And so that recipe has worked really well for our customers. We hear stories of customers telling us that their reps actually go to the Lemonade training before they have a meeting so they can brush up on the stuff they know they're going to talk about so that they're better prepared for those meetings. So that's the three pieces of the training recipe. Now the next thing is supporting people within the flow of work. So those same technology walkthroughs that you'd use in training, you can then take those. So you've already built them, you're using them to train people. So now put them on an online hub, like a portal that your employees can search so that when a customer says, hey, I can't figure out how to transfer money to my kid in university, no worries. What are you having trouble with? Oh, I'm having trouble with this specific thing. Pull up a walkthrough. You can actually go to the screen that they're having trouble on, get on the same page with that customer, walk them through the remainder of that transaction. You've done a bunch of things by doing that. First of all, you've improved the customer experience or the member experience for your credit union. You've improved that digital experience, which is key to not losing customers to the mega banks, going back to that first slide. The next thing you did was you gave them, because it has, you can also let your employees email it to that customer. So now they've got a permanent link that they can use so they don't call your contact center again. So improve the customer experience, reduce contact center call volumes for the next time, shorten the talk time of that initial call. So all that's good, saving you money, keeping your customers happy, but then also you've de-stressed that employee situation, that employee interaction with the customer. If every day I come to work and I'm not equipped to help customers, what I'm doing every day is failing. And if I'm failing every day, I'm out of there. I just am. It's just going to be too stressful. So by giving them the knowledge and then the tools to back them up in the flow of work, you can help reduce some of that attrition and make your employees' lives better. So going back, the proven strategy is teach the basics with game-based learning, drive fluency with tech walkthroughs, build soft skills with role play scenarios, and then provide support tools within the flow of work. And when you do that, you create a digitally fluent frontline, which equals organizational readiness. So when you roll out new tech, or you're supporting customers who are migrating to your tech, or you're going through a merger and acquisition, whatever it is, if you have the tools to drive digital fluency, you've got organizational readiness for any of those tech events that happen. The next thing, improve your digital customer experience, which helps you reduce attrition and even attract new customers, because those walkthroughs that you can put on your website show a commitment to digital, which I think customers are looking for. If I'm looking for a new FI, I want to make sure they're serious about digital, because that's how I do most of my banking. And if there's nothing on their website that shows me they're serious, probably going to look elsewhere. So then the last one is de-stress work life, which helps reduce your employee attrition. So that is our take on creating digital experts for financial institutions. And I noticed we have one question in the Q&A, so I'm just going to jump over there. So from David, he says, is the gamification approach designed solely for our employee base, or can it also be used for customers, whether it be on our website, iPad, or in-branch kiosk? Great question. So the gamification piece, the gamified learning piece, that is right now solely for your staff. And the customer-facing piece is a repository or an online hub that's branded, searchable, WCAG compliant, all that stuff baked in, so you can get it up and live really quickly. And it's got the technology walkthroughs. And the reason for that is when you're a customer and you're mid-transaction, you're worried about trying to do something, you don't want to play a game. You just want to get that thing solved. I just want the solution. Show me how to do it. But I will say that we are in the process of externalizing some of our games so that people can use them to engage customers for things like not just digital, but financial literacy and all that kind of stuff. That's coming up next quarter. So we're kind of excited about that. Next question. Hello, do you have any tools or software recommendations for training or game training? Yeah, so there are a number of solutions out there. Lemonade LXP has all that stuff baked in, so little self-plug there. But I will tell you, there are other solutions out there. The advice I'd give you is the things that you're looking for a true game-based approach, not gamified. So you don't want leaderboards and badges and the same old learning experience. You need to morph the learning experience into a game. So that's what you're looking for that in a vendor. You're also looking for rapid authoring tools, because it can get very expensive if you're building game-based learning from the ground up. So rapid authoring tools is mandatory, and it's best if the authoring tool and the platform are housed in the same environment. So you don't have to author a game and then compile it and then transfer it over, convert it over to the right file format and put it in the thing. That's just a pain, and it's just going to slow you down. So ideally, you've got the authoring tool baked into the platform. You can author, and instantly it's a game in the environment. So those are the things that you're looking for. True game-based learning approach, rapid authoring, and deployment. So yeah, that's what I'd be looking for. So from David again, so does your product become customized based on each of the core provider digital? Great question. Fiserv, DI, Q1, FIS. So with our product, what you can do is you can very quickly author walkthroughs of any technology. So no matter what core you're on or who your digital banking provider is, your mobile banking, whoever provides mobile remote check deposit, whatever those things are that you're plugging into your core, you can get screenshots and author these walkthroughs in a matter of minutes. So it's what would I say? It's fintech agnostic is the term I would use. So whomever you're working with, all you need is screenshots and you can author them. And we do have a small authoring tool, team as well, so we can author them for you. But what we found is that with our large FIs, often they have us author because they're swamped with other things. And with our smaller ones, they tend to author their own walkthroughs. Any other questions? So it's all screenshots versus interactive. That's the question David's asking. Well, no, it is interactive because the screenshots, once you put the screenshot into our authoring tool, you then put your guiding text and telling people what to do. So it would say, let's say I were doing just the login screen. So I would upload the login screen, and then I would drag and drop a box over the login screen, and I would write the guiding text, enter username. And then I would do the same thing over the password, and the guiding text would be enter password. And then over the button, I would drag and drop again and write tap here to continue. Then I would just go to my library of screenshots, grab the next screenshot in the flow, and put my guiding text. As quickly as I can author that and guide the person through the transaction, I click publish and it generates the walkthrough for me. So it is fully interactive. And then when you do that also, the cool thing is it authors a guided tour, like an interactive walkthrough that's guided, but it also creates a game for your learning environment that gives you kind of 5 lives, and you just have to figure out how to do that transaction yourself. And if you mess up 5 times, you got to start over. And the cool thing about that is what you see is people mess up a few times and they start over, but what they're doing is practicing that transaction over and over. And what we see is like 92% of learners on the platform say it helped them significantly increase their digital fluency. So by, again, making it into a game, making it kind of fun for them to learn, you can drive those results. Okay, so when slight changes are made to our systems, we're able to make our own navigation without having to go back to you. Yes. So when your tech changes, which it inevitably will, you can go back into any walkthrough and you can edit the screens within it. So you can replace screens, or let's say just something changed on the screen, you can just delete that hotspot and put a new hotspot in there. So it's very easy to change. You don't need us. And it's super fast. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there because it's geared so that you can make changes. And there's one other little cool thing, because when you're rolling out new tech, you want to pre-train your staff so that the day that it goes live, you've enabled them to support it. But when you're pre-training your staff, if you change your walkthrough, you don't want it to change on your public-facing online hub. So in Lemonade, we've got a feature where I can change the walkthrough, and in the employee training, it's the new version. But on the customer-facing support site, it's the old version, and then I just hit a toggle on the day it launches, and it automatically uploads to the new one. So it's very flexible that way to allow you to pre-train your folks. So you've got your organization is ready when the new tech comes out. There's a question in the chat feature. Okay, thank you for telling me. Okay, so can walkthroughs be placed on an intranet page? Yes, they can. So there are a couple of ways. So we do have the ability to export the walkthrough, but you can also pipe it in on a modal, which is probably the better way to do it because it's less heavy lifting. So you just add a little bit of code to the web page, it pipes it into a modal. So, if it's like, here's a link to it, but you can also, with our software, you can generate an actual online hub that's branded, searchable, and WCAG compliant already. So you get everything baked in, which is kind of the easier way to do it. Rochelle asks, how long is an implementation? That's one of the big advantages of the platform. Give us a URL and you'll be up the next day. And authoring a walkthrough takes less than 30 minutes. Authoring the site itself takes, 20 minutes. So you can be up and running in a couple of days. It's really a question of how quickly you can give us a URL, because that's the one thing. It's a cloud-based solution, so we just need a URL. Let me see. Yes, slide deck with the reporting. Sure, no problem. I'm just looking to see if there's any other questions. Pricing model, good question. So we have some customers that just want the learning experience platform to train their frontline staff. And then we have some customers who only want the digital enablement platform for supporting staff in the flow of work. And then increasingly, most of our clients want both. So the learning experience platform is seat-based, so depending on the number of learners you have. And then the digital adoption platform is asset-based. And the reason we did that is when we first built it, we built it for a big super regional. And we had been building walkthroughs ground up for them. And we built over 100 of them over a couple of years, and it was very expensive. Then their tech changed, and we had to change them, and they weren't happy about it. So we said, give us some time, we'll build you a software. So we built it and we brought it to market, and we priced it, as you would price it for a super regional. And then we started to get all sorts of interest from smaller community banks and credit unions and so forth. And it was just too expensive. So what we did was we created asset-based pricing so that no matter the size of your financial institution, we can fit it in. So that's how that model works. Any other questions? So what I'll say is, if you want to see the platform in action, you got my email there. Hit me up. I'm happy to hook you up with someone here, or I can do it myself if they're busy. But we will happy to give you a full demo if that's of interest. And also, if there's any of the links and stuff and research from this, if you want it, just hit me up. I'm happy to send over anything that you want. So thank you very much for making the time. I hope that it was useful for you. And hopefully we'll have occasion to chat with you sometime after this. Thank you very much. Take care, guys.